How did I go from missing 5 tackles my first game at IMG Academy to setting 2 records my senior year and going D1, now living out my childhood dreams? First off, to take you back to my sophomore year, this is kind of when things really started to get pretty serious for me. So my sophomore year, our team wasn't particularly great. We went 1-9 at Green Bay Southwest, so not the most ideal situation, but I had a pretty solid year. I was all conference as a running back and a linebacker, and I was really proud of that. It felt like a big accomplishment for me to actually make that happen. And I kind of thought I was a stud. I thought I was a baller. Like I was decent, but definitely not where I thought I was. Every time I look back, I kind of realized I was never as good as I thought I was. So I decided to go to a lot of camps. So I went to some FBS and Power 4 camps and didn't do particularly great at them. And even coming into these camps, the guys they were like seriously recruiting and they were really high on, they'd always get the single digit number. At the majority of these camps, I got the single digit number, so they knew I was out there, they knew I was a baller. But every camp I left, nothing came out of it. Just a conversation with coach and we'll keep watching. A soft way of saying no, in a sense. And I realized I had to do something differently. I realized it before I went to these camps. I decided to make the switch to IMG Academy for my development. And I was in a pretty good spot, though. I'd been training hard after my sophomore year. I was excited to go into the year at IMG Academy. Going to those camps and not succeeding how I wanted to, it gave me some extra fuel, to be honest, to keep pushing even harder. But I get out to IMG Academy, trained for a couple weeks before our first game. Went pretty well. Competition was definitely a lot better. We get to our first game against Manatee, a pretty solid team. I think they made a really deep playoff run that year. And I get out there, miss 5 tackles, and then let a touchdown get scored on me because simply the game was faster. I did not know what was going on, and I was frustrated. I kind of thought right there that my football career, like my odds of going D1, as dumb as it sounds now to say it, at the time when I was in the moment, I was like, yeah, like there's no chance I'm going D1. I just played some pretty high level competition, but by no means was everyone on that field D1. And I just did terrible. Missed 5 tackles, like I said, made an embarrassment of myself after my parents paid thousands of dollars for me to get there. And I was really frustrated the entire week. And it took a couple days, to be honest, for me to get out of my head and realize, like, this isn't the end of the world. It took me time, and I had to understand that I had to take ownership for what I did. It wasn't anyone's fault that I missed the 5 tackles. It was my fault. I was preparing. I thought I was doing good. I was training really, really hard, but it still wasn't enough. And that's why I realized I had to take relentless ownership for what I was doing to succeed. And I also began to realize that hard work doesn't automatically mean results. It's not fair in that way. But you have to have hard work that's backed by a system that actually makes sense. I realized that when I missed those 5 tackles, I'd busted my ass literally all offseason just to get out there and look like a fool in front of guys who maybe didn't work as hard, but they probably just knew a little bit more about what they were doing. They had a good coach. They had a good system by their side. They had a good trainer that they worked with on their own. And I was really just training on my own the entire offseason leading into it. And it was no surprise when I get to Florida, where it's substantially better than Green Bay, Wisconsin, that things don't go exactly how I wanted. And that was one of the most pivotal moments in my entire high school football career. I had to realize that I had to take that relentless ownership that I'm not as good as I want to be. And quite frankly, I'm not on the path to go D1, and I'm not going to make it. I had to be very real with myself. I literally had to confront the fact that if I keep playing like this, I will not make it. And that's a tough thing to realize because I literally told myself that I sucked. And I had to keep it real. But that allowed me to take ownership of my situation and start to understand, like, there's a way out of this if I can own that I'm not good enough right now. If I were to blame my teammates or my coaches, I would have kept missing tackles. I would have kept playing terribly. I probably would have had more missed tackles than made tackles that year, to be honest, if I didn't actually take that accountability for what I needed. But I took that accountability. I was able to pick things up. I was able to get out of my head a little bit. I was able to actually start figuring out what was going on. And I finished with a decent year. Not great. Ended up with, I think, 39 tackles and 7 tackles for loss. So I did something, but it definitely wasn't outstanding by any means. But it did allow me to end up earning a scholarship offer to Missouri State that offseason. I committed there. And then going into my senior year, I was ready to dominate because that entire offseason, I took ownership for where I was at because I didn't think I had a particularly great year. So I had a lot of motivation going into offseason and just absolutely wanting to crush it. So I went really hard and did pretty well. Definitely committing to Missouri State, pulled off the gas a little bit, and that's a story for another day why that happened. But then going into my senior year, I knew my outcome was 100% determined by exactly what I'd done this offseason and the work I'd continued to put in. And one thing that I thought was funny is when I got out there, I had done almost all the work I needed to do and was really happy how I came into the season, but I didn't know that I would particularly do great right away my senior year. I felt that maybe I wouldn't do great because I'd been putting in the work all offseason to a good amount. Like, and my good amount is probably very high level for most guys, just with my standard. It wasn't perfect, but I was happy with it. But I wasn't sure if I'd actually play very well my senior year until that first game came around. I had 15 tackles and 5 tackles for loss. And I kind of realized after that game, it's like, yeah, the season might be a little different. Like what I'd been doing, the system I'd built for myself actually paid off because I took ownership of where I was at. And I went on to continue to have a pretty good season. And I was really happy how it continued to progress. Things changed in the middle of the year, had to decommit, a relationship ended, and I was distraught for a little bit. But it allowed me to push harder and finish out the season how I wanted to. And it allowed me to set those 2 records, like I said. Finished with 141, maybe 142 tackles through all of our games and 40 tackles for loss. So definitely not numbers to slouch at. And those were both records at the school. And that was something I was really proud of. But the thing was, if I went back to my first game at IMG Academy, literally, I don't know, 1 season prior, my junior year, and I didn't take ownership at that exact moment when I failed and I didn't understand. And if I didn't understand that I wasn't good enough in that moment, I would never be where I'm sitting here now. Because I could have looked towards external circumstances, or I could have tried to do things my own way, like I'd continued to do before. Like I mentioned, I was training on my own the entire time. I thought it was pretty good until I got exposed on game day because I was working really hard. I was working one of the hardest times in my life, but then it didn't pay off. I decided to look and understand that it's all on me, what I'm doing. Even taking responsibility of things that weren't 100% in my control, I took pride and be like, yeah, maybe it was half my fault, half his fault. No, it's 100% my fault, and we're not where we need to be because I can be better because of it. And that really allowed me to step it up my senior year and get what I had mentioned of setting the records. But the thing is it was tough. But if it wasn't tough, it would not have been worth it, in my opinion, by any means. Because there was a lot of work behind it, and I could have went back to that moment. I could have folded, crumbled, but I took that responsibility and decided I need to look for help outside of myself. I don't know it all. That was one of the big realizations. I don't know it all, and I have to find someone who's been through the process to help guide me. And that was really looking at the other resources they had at IMG Academy. That was the first reason I went there because I understood I need a better situation where other people know more and they can guide me. So that's exactly what I did. And once I truly embraced that after that first game, that's when things took off. I found that guidance like I needed. I had a crazy athletic transformation between my junior and senior year to get me to where I wanted to go, dropping 0.4 seconds off my 40, gaining. I think it ended up being right at 20 pounds because I looked for help at the end of the year. I said, Coach Seabass, he was our head strength coach. I'm like, what can I do this offseason? Because I'm going back home to train by myself. How do I make sure I do this right? recommended me multiple books. We had multiple conversations, and I took it upon myself to study these like crazy. The last 2 or 3 weeks when we were out of the season at IMG, all I did was sit in the dorm and study the books. And it allowed me to have the athletic transformation that I want, all because I took the ownership that I wasn't good enough and I needed to find the help to then actually be good enough and get to where I want to go. So if you guys haven't picked up on it yet, the moral of this is whatever situation you're in, whether it's good or bad, you need to take ownership for where you're at. And understanding that you have the responsibility over where you end up in life, even if something bad happens to you that maybe isn't in your control, how can you take responsibility to come back even better from that to make sure that what you want to achieve in your life is still going to be possible? So that's what I have for you guys today. And yeah, I hope your journey continues to be great and that you continue to thrive and you find that help that you need and you take the ownership that you need to get you to where you want to go. I will catch you in the next one.